What would the world look like today if World War II had never happened? It's a question that provokes thought and brings us to the immense significance of this global conflict. This war, stretching from the late 1930s to the mid-1940s, was a pivotal moment in history that shaped the world we know today. It has influenced our politics, economies, and cultures in ways both profound and subtle. To understand its impact, we must first delve into the events of the war itself. Our story begins in the late 1930s, a time of turmoil and tension. In Germany, a charismatic yet fearsome figure rose to power: Adolf Hitler. Under Hitler's rule, the nation was swiftly militarized, violating the Treaty of Versailles that had ended the First World War. Meanwhile, the world watched with bated breath as Germany, under the banner of the Third Reich, invaded Poland in September of 1939. This act of aggression was the final straw for Britain and France. They could no longer sit by and watch as the world order was threatened. In response, both nations declared war against Germany, marking the start of the Second World War. The stakes were high, and the world held its breath, bracing for the storm that was about to hit. The drums of war were beating, the chess pieces were moving, and the world was on the brink. By the end of 1939, the world was once again plunged into a global conflict. As the 1940s dawned, so did the intensification of World War II. The world was in turmoil, and the events that unfolded between 1940 and 1942 played a significant role in shaping the course of the war. In 1940, the Battle of Britain marked a crucial turning point in the war. The German Luftwaffe, in an attempt to gain air superiority, launched a massive air campaign against the British Isles. However, the resilient Royal Air Force defended their skies valiantly, delivering the first major check to Hitler's war machine. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the tide of war took another turn. In 1941, Hitler broke the non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union and launched Operation Barbarossa. It was a high-stakes gamble that ultimately backfired. The Soviet Union, though initially caught off guard, managed to resist the German onslaught, marking the beginning of a grueling war of attrition. Across the Atlantic, the United States had managed to stay out of the conflict until 1941. That all changed on a fateful December morning when Japanese planes bombed Pearl Harbor. The attack, which President Roosevelt famously called a date which will live in infamy, forced the United States to enter the war. By 1942, the war had become truly global, with battles raging on every continent. The world was locked in a struggle between the forces of freedom and tyranny, a struggle that would shape the course of history. The years 1943 to 1945 were filled with turning points and decisive moments. The Battle of Stalingrad, a brutal confrontation between the Axis and Soviet forces, marked the beginning of these pivotal years. This fierce battle, stretching over 5 long months, ended in February 1943 and proved to be a significant turning point. The Axis powers suffered a crushing defeat, signaling a shift in the course of the war. Moving on to June 1944, the Allied forces launched Operation Overlord, more commonly known as D-Day. This massive invasion on the beaches of Normandy, France, marked yet another significant turning point, opening up a new front against the Axis powers in Western Europe and setting the stage for their ultimate downfall. But the war was far from over. In August 1945, the world witnessed a new kind of horror. The United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devastation was unprecedented, and the impact was far-reaching. These bombings, the first of their kind, pushed Japan to the brink, leading them to surrender. Finally, on May 7, 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally to the Allies, marking the end of the war in Europe. But it wasn't until September 2nd that Japan followed suit, bringing the global conflict to a close. On September 2nd, 1945, World War II officially ended, leaving an indelible mark on history. In the aftermath of World War II, the world was forever changed. The war's conclusion marked the rise of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, reshaping the global political landscape. The creation of the United Nations aimed at fostering international cooperation. Yet it also paved the way for the Cold War's ideological clashes. These monumental shifts, born out of conflict, continue to shape our world. The echoes of World War II still resonate today, a stark reminder of the devastating power of global conflict.